The flickering desk lamp cast long shadows across my cramped studio apartment as I hunched over my drafting table at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Blueprints for a sustainable community center sprawled before me, my 7th revision that week. The coffee in my mug had gone cold hours ago, but I barely noticed. This was my life now, pouring everything I had into my architecture career while my family remained blissfully unaware of just how successful I had become. My phone buzzed with a video call from Ethan. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the decline button. But old habits die hard. I accepted the call and immediately regretted it. My brother's face filled the screen, his perfectly styled hair and designer polo shirt screaming success. Behind him, I could see Tiffany lounging on what looked like a very expensive leather couch, her manicured nails tapping against a wine glass. Ethan's voice dripped with condescension. "You still drawing those little houses, Savannah? Seems like your career never really takes off, does it? If you want to make real money, I could get you in at my firm. Though honestly, the salary probably wouldn't even match my commission checks." He laughed, and Tiffany joined in from the background. I forced a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. "I'm doing fine, Ethan. Just working on a project." "A project?" He smirked. "Right. Well, we just got back from the Bahamas. 4-star resort, private beach. Next month we're taking the kids to Aspen. Tyler needs to learn to ski before he starts at Westbridge Academy. Do you know how much that school costs? But that's what you do for family, right? You invest in their future." Tiffany appeared beside him, draping an arm over his shoulder. "Not everyone can afford that lifestyle, honey. Some people are just, more practical with their choices." She gave me a pitying look that made my stomach churn. After I ended the call, I sat in the darkness of my apartment and stared out at the city lights. I had been listening to variations of this conversation for 5 years now, ever since I started my own architectural practice. My parents never missed an opportunity to compare us, always finding Ethan's corporate sales job more impressive than my passion for sustainable design. They didn't know that I had been quietly building something remarkable. They didn't know about the high-profile clients, the awards, the steady income that had been growing year after year. And I had decided months ago that they wouldn't know, not until I had something concrete to show them, not until I had proof they couldn't dismiss. That night, I made a decision. I would buy a house. Not just any house, but the house, the kind of home that would make it impossible for them to belittle my achievements. And I would do it in secret, on my own terms, without their judgment or interference, clouding every step of the process. 3 weeks later, I sat across from Emma Caldwell, a real estate agent who came highly recommended. She was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. We were in her office downtown, surrounded by property listings and certificates of achievement. "I need to be completely honest with you," I told her, leaning forward. "I want to buy a house, but my family can't know about it until it's done." "I know that sounds strange." Emma smiled knowingly. "Honey, I've been in this business for 25 years. Trust me, I've heard stranger." She pulled out a folder. "Now, what's your budget?" "I have $100,000 in savings, and I've been pre-approved for a mortgage up to $350,000. Her eyebrows rose slightly, impressed. "For someone your age, that's remarkable. What kind of property are you looking for?" Over the next month, Emma and I toured 30 houses. Each one fell short in some way. Too modern, too small, wrong neighborhood, bad bones. I was beginning to lose hope when Emma called me on a rainy Saturday morning. "I have one more." Her voice carried an excitement I hadn't heard before. "Victorian, built in 1892, in the Oak Ridge neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, and Savannah, it has the most incredible natural light. The owner is a retired professor who maintained it beautifully. It just came on the market yesterday." I met her at the property an hour later. The rain was coming down in sheets, and I almost didn't get out of the car. The house looked imposing from the street, a grand old dame with a wraparound porch and intricate woodwork that had weathered decades of storms. But when Emma unlocked the front door and I stepped inside, everything changed. Light poured through tall windows, catching dust motes in golden streams. The hardwood floors gleamed beneath my feet, original oak that had been lovingly maintained. I walked through the living room with its built-in bookshelves and stone fireplace, into a kitchen that somehow managed to blend historic charm with modern functionality. Large windows overlooked a backyard dominated by a massive old oak tree, its branches reaching toward the house like a protective embrace. Emma watched me with a knowing smile. "Want to see the upstairs?" The master bedroom took my breath away. A bay window with a cushioned window seat looked out over a Japanese maple tree, its delicate leaves trembling in the rain. I sat on the window seat without thinking, my hand trailing over the smooth wood. I could see myself here, reading on lazy Sunday mornings, sketching designs as the seasons changed outside this very window. The room even had its own small fireplace and a walk-in closet that had been converted into a home office nook. The other bedrooms were equally charming, each with its own character. One had built-in shelves perfect for a library. Another had dormer windows that created cozy alcoves. The house even had a finished attic space that I immediately envisioned as a design studio, with skylights that would flood the space with northern light. But it was when Emma showed me the basement that I fell completely in love. The previous owner had installed solar panels, and the system was only 3 years old, still under warranty. There was also a tankless water heater and upgraded insulation. This house was everything I had dreamed of, a perfect blend of historic beauty and modern sustainability. How much? I asked, though I almost didn't want to know. $425,000. Emma's voice was gentle. I know it's above your budget. But Savannah, this house is special. And the seller, Professor Jenkins, he's not just looking at the highest offer. He wants someone who will appreciate what he's built here. That night, I couldn't sleep. I ran the numbers a dozen different ways. I would need to stretch my budget, take out a larger mortgage, potentially dip into my emergency fund for the down payment. It was risky. It was terrifying. But when I closed my eyes, all I could see was that window seat, that maple tree, those sun-filled rooms waiting to become mine. The next morning, I called Emma. I want to make an offer. The process of securing the mortgage was grueling. As a self-employed architect, I faced more scrutiny than someone with a traditional 9-to-5 job. I spent days gathering tax returns, bank statements, client contracts, anything to prove my income was stable and substantial. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when the mountain of paperwork and endless questions from the loan officer felt overwhelming. But I persisted. 2 weeks later, I sat in Emma's office again, this time with a stack of documents in front of me. We have competition, she told me. 3 other offers came in, all close to asking price. Professor Jenkins wants to make a decision by Friday. I need to write him a letter. The words came out before I had fully formed the thought. Emma blinked. A letter? I'm an architect. I understand what it means to build something, to create a space that becomes part of your identity. If Professor Jenkins loves this house the way I think he does, money won't be the only factor. Let me tell him what this house means to me. I stayed up all night writing that letter. I told Professor Jenkins about my career, my passion for sustainable design, my vision for preserving the home's historic character while honoring the modern updates he had made. I explained how I would care for the oak tree, maintain the original fixtures, cherish every detail he had lovingly preserved. I poured my heart onto the page in a way I had never done before. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Emma, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Savannah, are you sitting down? Professor Jenkins accepted your offer. He said your letter moved him to tears. He knows his house will be loved. I screamed so loudly that my downstairs neighbor pounded on the ceiling with a broom handle. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt pure, unfiltered joy. This house was mine. I had done this on my own, without my family's help or approval. It was proof of everything I had built, a tangible representation of my success that no one could dismiss or diminish. The closing process took another month. During that time, I kept my secret locked tight. My parents called weekly with their usual updates about Ethan's latest achievements, never asking much about my life beyond perfunctory questions. Ethan sent occasional texts bragging about his new car or his latest sales bonus. I responded with brief, non-committal messages, all while signing mortgage documents and transferring funds, and making plans for my new life. The day I got the keys was a Thursday in late September. Emma met me at the house, both of us grinning like idiots. This is it. She handed me a set of keys with a small silver keychain shaped like a house. Congratulations, Savannah. You did it. I walked through my house slowly, touching the walls, running my hands over the banister, memorizing every detail. It was empty now, echoing with possibility. I stood in the master bedroom at my window seat and looked out at the Japanese maple, its leaves just beginning to turn red with autumn. This was mine. All mine. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved in gradually. I hired movers for the furniture I had been accumulating over the years, pieces I had chosen carefully even when I lived in my tiny apartment, always imagining them in a space like this. I unpacked boxes late into the night, arranging books on the built-in shelves, hanging artwork on the walls, setting up my home office in what I now called my design studio. But I also made another crucial decision. I installed a state-of-the-art security system. 6 cameras outside covering every entrance and angle of the property. 4 cameras inside strategically placed in the living room, kitchen, entryway, and upstairs hallway. Motion sensors on every door and window. A monitoring system connected directly to my phone that would alert me to any activity, with cloud storage that kept footage for 90 days. The security company thought I was paranoid. I called it being prepared. My paranoia, as it turned out, was justified in ways I couldn't have imagined. One Saturday morning, I was arranging furniture in the living room when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, holding a pie dish covered in aluminum foil. You must be the new owner. Her voice was warm and cultured. I'm Harriet Chen. I live 3 houses down. I wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. I invited her in, and we sat in my kitchen eating apple pie while she told me about the neighborhood. Harriet was a retired literature professor who had lived on Oak Ridge Drive for 40 years. She knew everyone, everything, and had a sharp wit that I immediately appreciated. "Professor Jenkins will be so pleased," she said, looking around my kitchen with approval. "He was very particular about who bought his house." She leaned in conspiratorially. "There were several other offers, higher offers, but he chose you." "I know. I wrote him a letter." Harriet's eyes twinkled. "Oh, I heard about that letter. It made quite an impression." She paused, then added, "If you ever need anything, dear, I'm just down the street." "I keep an eye on things around here." She said it casually, but something in her tone suggested she meant it literally. "Thank you." I found myself meaning it sincerely. "That's really kind." The next day, I met my other key neighbor. I was checking my mailbox when a man emerged from the house directly across the street. He was tall and thin, probably in his early 70s, with wire-rimmed glasses and the careful movements of someone who paid attention to every detail. "You're the new owner." It wasn't a question. He walked across the street with measured steps. "Douglas Patterson. I live there." He pointed to his house. "I'm usually home. I notice things." He said it matter-of-factly, without apology. "Savannah Reed." I shook his hand. "Nice to meet you. That oak tree in your backyard, the big one," Douglas continued, "needs trimming on the northwest side. Branch is dead. Could fall in a bad storm. Also, your porch light on the right side flickers. Electrical issue, probably." I blinked, surprised by his directness. "Oh. Thank you for letting me know." He nodded. "I keep an eye on the street. See who comes and goes. Good for security." He looked at me intently. "If you ever notice anything unusual, I'll probably notice it too. Feel free to ask." As he walked back to his house, Harriet's words echoed in my mind. Some people found Douglas intrusive, but I found his vigilance oddly comforting. In a neighborhood like this, having people who paid attention felt like a blessing rather than a curse. I spent the next few weeks settling in completely. I painted the guest bedroom a soft sage green, refinished the hardwood floors in the dining room, and started a small herb garden in the backyard beneath the oak tree. I joined a local architecture association and made plans to host a housewarming party in early November. My parents and Ethan would be invited, of course. I imagined their faces when they walked through the door, the shock and disbelief that I had accomplished something they had always said was beyond me. Then work intervened. James Whitmore, my biggest client, called on a Wednesday afternoon. His voice was tight with stress. "Savannah, I need you in Chicago. The Harrison project is falling apart. The contractor found structural issues we didn't anticipate, and the city inspector is threatening to shut us down. You're the only one who can fix this." "James, I can't just drop everything and fly to Chicago. I'll pay double your usual rate. Please, Savannah, this is a $12 million project. If we don't solve this in the next few days, we're going to lose everything." I closed my eyes and thought about the Harrison project, a sustainable mixed-use development that I had been consulting on for 6 months. It was important work, the kind of project that could define a career. I sighed. "When do you need me there?" "Tomorrow morning, if possible." I spent that evening packing and preparing my house for my absence. I set the security system to its highest sensitivity, double-checked all the locks, and brought in my mail. Then I walked down the street to Harriet's house. She answered the door in a cardigan and reading glasses, a book in her hand. "Savannah, what a pleasant surprise. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I have to fly to Chicago tomorrow for work. I should be back by the weekend. I was wondering if you could keep an eye on the house." "Of course, dear." Harriet set down her book. "Do you need me to water plants? Collect mail?" I pulled out my spare key, just in case of emergency. "I have a security system that will alert me if anything happens, but if there's a problem and I can't get back right away, could you check on things?" Harriet took the key solemnly. "You can count on me." I flew to Chicago the next morning and immediately immersed myself in the crisis. The structural issues were worse than James had described. I spent 12-hour days on the construction site, consulting with engineers, redesigning support systems, arguing with city inspectors. By Thursday evening, I was exhausted but making progress. We had a solution that would work, though it required significant modifications to my original design. I was in my hotel room at 9 p.m., reviewing blueprints spread across the bed, when my phone rang. It was Douglas Patterson. "Miss Reed, I hope I'm not disturbing you." His voice was calm but serious. "There are 3 vehicles in your driveway that I don't recognize. Lights are on throughout your house. I can hear music and what sounds like children." My blood turned to ice. "What?" "I saw a man and woman arrive about 2 hours ago with 2 children. They let themselves in with a key. They appear to be making themselves at home." My hands started shaking. "Thank you for calling, Mr. Patterson. I'll handle this." I immediately opened the security app on my phone. The live feeds from my cameras loaded, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Ethan was sprawling on my couch, his feet on my coffee table, beer bottle in hand. Tiffany was in my dining room, examining my bookshelf with the critical eye of someone evaluating property. Tyler and Lily were jumping on my window seat cushions in the master bedroom, their shoes still on. The kitchen counter was covered with pizza boxes, wine bottles, and bags of chips. They were having a party. In my house that they didn't even know existed. I watched in horror as Tyler grabbed one of my throw pillows and hurled it at his sister. Lily shrieked and knocked over a potted plant, soil spilling across my freshly refinished hardwood floor. Tiffany glanced over, laughed, and went back to examining my belongings. No discipline, no consequences, just chaos. My phone was already dialing Harriet before I fully processed what I was seeing. It rang 3 times before she answered. "Harriet, it's Savannah. I need to know something very important. How did Ethan get into my house?" There was a pause, then Harriet's voice came back filled with distress. "Oh, my dear God. Your brother came to my door about 2 hours ago. He said you had been in an accident in Chicago, that you were in the hospital, and that he needed to get into your house to find your medical insurance documents. He even showed me text messages from your phone. I'm so sorry." I believed him. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Ethan had somehow spoofed my phone number, sent fake messages to make his story credible. He had manipulated Harriet's kindness to get access to my home. But how had he known where I lived? How had he found out about the house at all? I turned my attention back to the security cameras, switching between different views, and my horror deepened with each passing minute. I watched Ethan and Tiffany walk through my master bedroom like prospective buyers at an open house. Tiffany ran her hand along my dresser, opened my closet, examined my clothes. Her voice came through the audio feed clearly. She always had weird taste. Sage green in a bedroom? It looks like a hospital. We'd have to repaint everything if we moved in here. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the room. Ethan joined her at the window seat. I can't believe she could afford this place. His voice dripped with disbelief, and something darker, something envious. Her salary as a freelance architect, there's no way. She must have a rich boyfriend we don't know about. Or maybe she got some inheritance from Mom's side we weren't told about. Tiffany turned to him sharply. An inheritance? Your parents would have told us. Not if it came from an aunt or someone. Mom has family we barely talk to. Ethan's mind was clearly racing. However, she got this money. She's been hiding it from all of us. Acting like she's barely scraping by while she buys a house in Oak Ridge. Do you know what houses cost here? They moved to the kitchen next, and I watched with mounting fury as they opened my refrigerator, helped themselves to my food, poured my wine. They were treating my home like a vacation rental, like something they had every right to access. But it was what happened next that transformed my anger into cold determination. I watched Ethan walk into my home office, my private sanctuary where I kept my most important documents. He went straight to my desk and tried the drawer. Locked. He disappeared from frame for a moment, then returned with a letter opener. Within minutes, he had jimmied open the drawer and was pulling out my files, my mortgage documents, my bank statements, my client contracts. He spread them across my desk and pulled out his phone, photographing everything, page after page after page. My entire financial life laid bare for his scrutiny. Tiffany joined him, reading over his shoulder. 425,000. She breathed. With only 100,000 down. Savannah is mortgaged to her eyeballs. Ethan was already calculating. Look at her monthly payment, plus property taxes, insurance, utilities. There's no way she can sustain this on her income. He looked up at Tiffany with something calculating in his eyes. She's going to default. It's just a matter of time. And when she does, they didn't finish the sentence out loud, but they didn't need to. I could see the future they were imagining, the future they were planning. They would be there when I failed, ready to sweep in and take what I had built. Except I wasn't going to fail. And I certainly wasn't going to let them get away with this. I switched camera views to the living room, where Tyler had found my acoustic guitar. He was banging on it like a drum while Lily used my throw pillows as stepping stones, jumping from couch to chair to coffee table. One of my architectural models, a miniature I had built of my most important project, sat precariously on the edge of the table. As I watched, Lily's foot clipped it, sending it crashing to the floor. The delicate balsa wood structure shattered on impact. Tiffany glanced over from where she was opening my liquor cabinet. "Oh no, was that important?" she asked absently, not really caring about the answer. "Well, she probably has more." She pulled out a bottle of whiskey I had been saving for a special occasion and poured herself a generous glass. In the master bedroom, Ethan was on his phone. I increased the volume and heard him clearly. "Hey Greg, hypothetical question for you. If someone wanted to transfer property ownership to a family member, what's the easiest way to do that?" His voice was casual, but my blood ran cold. There was a pause as the person on the other end responded. Then Ethan continued. "Right, but what if the original owner didn't want to transfer? Is there a way to, let's say, facilitate the process? Like, if they were having financial difficulties or maybe had some kind of mental capacity issue, could joint ownership be established?" Or maybe power of attorney? My hands clenched into fists. He wasn't just snooping, he was planning. He was actively researching how to steal my house. I watched as Ethan ended his call and walked back to the office, where Tiffany was still examining my documents. He looked at her with an expression I had seen before, usually right before he did something manipulative to make himself look good at someone else's expense. "She's clearly living beyond her means," he said. "Look at this budget spreadsheet. She's got maybe $2,000 of cushion each month. One major repair, one big unexpected expense, and she's underwater." He tapped the papers thoughtfully. "We should talk to Mom and Dad. Express concern about her financial stability. Suggest that maybe family should step in to help manage her assets." Tiffany smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "We could offer to take over the house. For her own good, of course. She can't handle this responsibility. We'd be doing her a favor." I had heard enough. I closed the camera app and sat in my hotel room, my whole body shaking with rage. This wasn't just a case of entitled relatives making themselves comfortable in my absence. This was a calculated plan to undermine me, to take what I had built, to prove to our parents and to themselves that I was incapable of succeeding on my own. The old Savannah would have called them, confronted them, let them gaslight her into believing this was somehow a misunderstanding. The old Savannah would have felt guilty for having boundaries, for succeeding where they thought she should fail. But the old Savannah had died the moment I bought this house. The new Savannah, the one who had fought for every square foot of this property, who had overcome years of condescension and doubt to build something real, that Savannah knew exactly what needed to be done. I picked up my phone and dialed 911. The operator answered on the second ring. 911. "What's your emergency? I need to report a break-in and trespassing at my property." I kept my voice steady and clear. "I'm currently out of town, and I have people in my house who were not given permission to be there. They gained entry through deception, they've been photographing my private financial documents, and they're actively damaging my property. I have video evidence of everything." "Ma'am, do you know the people in your house?" "Yes, they're my brother and his family." There was a pause. "If this is a family dispute, we generally recommend resolving it through civil means." I cut her off firmly. "This is not a simple dispute. My brother deceived my neighbor to obtain my house key, claiming I was in an accident. He has broken into my locked desk, photographed my financial and legal documents, and I have him on camera discussing plans to fraudulently take ownership of my property. My niece and nephew are destroying my belongings while their parents watch. This is criminal trespassing, breaking and entering, and possibly conspiracy to commit fraud. I have clear video evidence of all of it, and I'm prepared to press charges." My voice must have conveyed the seriousness of the situation, because the operator's tone changed immediately. "What's the address?" After I hung up with the police, I called Harriet back. The poor woman was still distraught with guilt. "I'm so sorry, Savannah. I should have called you first to verify. I just thought," with the text messages and his concern, it seemed genuine. "Harriet, this is not your fault. Ethan is manipulative, and he's clearly been planning this. I need you to do something for me. When the police arrive, can you verify to them that Ethan obtained the key through deception?" "Of course." "Absolutely. I'll tell them everything." Next, I called Emma Caldwell. She answered cheerfully. "Savannah, how's the house treating you?" "Emma, I need you to do something important. I need you to send copies of my property deed and mortgage documents to the police department, and I need you to alert your legal team that there may be an attempt to fraudulently transfer or claim ownership of my property. My brother has accessed my financial documents and is actively researching ways to take my house." Emma's voice turned serious immediately. "Savannah, what's happening?" I explained the situation in brief, clinical terms. When I finished, Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm sending those documents right now. And Savannah, document everything. Every text, every call, every second of that video. You're going to need it." Finally, I booked the earliest flight back to Portland. It left at 6 a.m., which meant I had to be at the airport by 4:30. I would miss critical meetings with the Chicago team, but James would have to understand. My home, my sanctuary, my proof of everything I had built was under attack. I wasn't going to let Ethan destroy it. I barely slept that night. I kept checking the security cameras, watching as Ethan and Tiffany continued to treat my house like their personal property. Around midnight, Tiffany went upstairs and started trying on my clothes, posing in front of my mirror. "We're about the same size," she said to her reflection. "I could definitely use some of these pieces if we end up here." At 1:15 a.m., my camera feed showed flashing lights outside. 2 police officers approached my front door. I watched as Ethan answered, his expression confident and unconcerned. "Good evening, officers. Can I help you?" His tone was friendly, cooperative. "We received a report of unauthorized persons in this residence. Can I ask your relationship to the property owner?" "I'm her brother." Ethan smiled easily. "Our sister is out of town for work, and she asked us to check on the house. Family looking out for family, you know how it is." Before the officer could respond, I saw Harriet appear on camera, walking quickly across the lawn despite the late hour. She was wrapped in a robe, her silver hair loose around her shoulders, but her voice was clear and firm. "Officers, I'm Harriet Chen. I live 3 houses down. I need to tell you something important." The officers turned to her, and Harriet explained everything. How Ethan had come to her door, the fake accident story, the text messages that she now realized were spoofed. I gave him the key in good faith, believing his sister was in danger. She pulled out her phone, showing them the fake texts. I've since spoken with Miss Reed. She's in Chicago, she's fine, and she absolutely did not authorize her brother to be in her house. I watched Ethan's confident expression crumble. "That's not, there's been a misunderstanding," he stammered. "Sir, do you have permission from the property owner to be here? She's my sister. We share everything." "Family shares? That's not what I asked, sir. Do you have explicit permission from Savannah Reed to be in this house tonight?" Ethan hesitated too long. The officer's hand moved to his belt. "I'm going to need to see some ID, and I need everyone in the house to come to the front door." I watched with grim satisfaction as Ethan called Tiffany and the kids downstairs. Tyler was crying, confused by the police presence. Lily clung to her mother's leg. Tiffany's face was pale with anger and fear. The officers asked them to step outside while they assessed the situation. One officer walked through my house with his body camera on, documenting the mess, the open desk drawer, the scattered financial documents, the broken architectural model. When he reached the office, he picked up my mortgage papers from where Ethan had left them on the desk. "Sir, why are these documents out?" The officer held them up so his camera could see them clearly. Ethan swallowed hard. "I was looking for her insurance information, in case something happened." "Her mortgage documents aren't insurance information, sir. And I'm told her desk was locked." "How did you access it?" The silence stretched. Finally, one of the officers pulled out his handcuffs. "Sir, I'm not arresting you tonight, but you and your family need to leave this property immediately. If the property owner decides to press charges for trespassing, breaking and entering, or theft of personal documents, you'll be contacted. Do you understand? This is insane." Tiffany's voice rose sharply. "This is a family matter. We're her brother and sister-in-law. We have every right to be concerned about her financial decisions. She's clearly living beyond her means. Anyone can see that. Ma'am, that's not for you to decide." The officer's voice was firm. "You need to gather your belongings and leave now." I watched them collect their things, Tiffany fuming, Ethan silent and pale. The children, sensing their parents' distress, had both started crying. As they filed out to their cars, one of the officers spoke to Harriet. "Ma'am, you did the right thing coming forward. These situations can get complicated with family, but the law is clear. They had no right to be here." After they left, the officers walked around my property, documenting damage with photos, the broken model, the pizza stains on my couch, the crayon marks Lily had added to my freshly painted dining room wall, the scratches on my desk where Ethan had forced it open. Every single violation captured for the record. My phone rang at 2 a.m. It was my father. "Savannah Marie Reed, what the hell is going on? Ethan just called us from his car. He says you had him arrested." "He wasn't arrested, Dad, but he should have been." I kept my voice level. "He broke into my house." "Broke in? He's your brother!" "When did you even get a house? What kind of daughter keeps that secret from her parents? The kind who knew exactly this would happen?" I shot back. "Dad, Ethan didn't accidentally end up in my house. He lied to my neighbor, claiming I was in an accident, to get my house key. He broke into my locked desk. He photographed my financial documents. He called someone to ask about fraudulently transferring property ownership. I have it all on video." There was silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice, shrill in the background. "Let me talk to her." The phone switched hands. "Savannah," your mother said, her voice tight with anger. "This is unconscionable. Whatever problems you have with your brother, you don't call the police on family. You don't air our private issues to strangers. Mom, he broke into my house. A house we knew nothing about. How could you keep something like this from us? Are you ashamed of your family? Do you think you're better than us now?" The familiar guilt tried to rise up, the old programming that said I was wrong for having boundaries, wrong for keeping my achievements private, wrong for not letting them control every aspect of my life. But I pushed it down. "I'll explain everything when I get home tomorrow. Right now, I need to coordinate with the police to document what Ethan did. We'll talk when I'm back." I ended the call before they could argue further. I made it through my early morning flight in a daze of exhaustion and adrenaline. When I finally pulled into my driveway at 11 a.m., Douglas Patterson was waiting on my porch. He stood up as I approached, his expression grave. "Miss Reed, I documented everything." He handed me a manila folder. Times vehicles arrived and left, makes and models, license plates. "I also took photographs of your front door when they departed. There were scratches that weren't there before." He paused. "I'm prepared to provide a written statement to the police if you need it." I took the folder, genuinely moved. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. This means more than you know. He nodded once, then walked back to his house. I stood in my driveway for a moment, looking at my home. From the outside, it looked untouched, serene even, with morning sunlight filtering through the oak tree. But I knew what lay inside. I unlocked the door and stepped into the aftermath. The living room looked like a tornado had passed through. Pizza boxes and beer bottles littered my coffee table. My couch cushions were askew, one of them stained dark with what looked like red wine. The broken architectural model lay in pieces on the floor, months of careful work reduced to splinters. I picked up one of the delicate balsa wood walls and felt tears prick my eyes. In the dining room, Lily's crayon artwork covered a 3-foot section of wall, bold strokes of red and blue and green that would require multiple coats of paint to cover. My potted fiddle leaf fig lay on its side, soil scattered across the hardwood floor I had spent a weekend refinishing. The kitchen was worse. They had used my counters as a buffet station, leaving grease stains and spills. Someone had spilled juice inside my refrigerator, and it had dripped down onto the vegetable drawer. My good whiskey was gone, the bottle empty on the counter. Dirty dishes filled my sink. Upstairs, my master bedroom felt violated. My closet door hung open, clothes pulled from hangers and tossed carelessly on the floor. Tiffany had tried on at least a dozen items, leaving them in crumpled heaps. My jewelry box had been rifled through, though thankfully nothing seemed to be missing. The window seat cushion bore a black scuff mark from Tyler's shoes, but it was my office that hurt the most. My desk drawer hung open, the lock mechanism visibly damaged. Papers were scattered everywhere, my carefully organized filing system destroyed. They hadn't even bothered to put things back. My most private documents, my financial life, my business contracts, all of it had been exposed and examined and photographed. I stood in the middle of my office and let myself feel the full weight of the violation. This wasn't just about property damage or trespassing. This was about my brother, the person who was supposed to protect me, actively plotting to destroy what I had built. This was about my family's complete disregard for my autonomy, my privacy, my right to succeed on my own terms. I pulled out my phone and methodically photographed everything. Every stain, every broken item, every piece of evidence. Then I downloaded all the security footage from the past 2 days and backed it up in 3 different locations. If Ethan wanted to play games, I would make sure I had irrefutable proof of exactly what he had done. I spent the rest of the day cleaning. It was therapeutic in a way, taking back my space one room at a time. I threw away the trash, washed the dishes, scrubbed the stains. I couldn't fix everything immediately. The crayon on the wall would require professional repainting. The desk lock needed to be replaced. The architectural model was beyond repair. But I could restore order, impose my will on the chaos Ethan had created. By evening, my phone was exploding with messages. Ethan had sent a long text trying to justify his actions. "We were worried about you. We just wanted to make sure you were okay. You're being unreasonable. Family should be able to help family." Tiffany sent her own message, dripping with fake concern. "I'm so sorry if we overstepped. We were just trying to be supportive. Maybe we can all sit down and talk about this like adults?" My parents called 6 times. I ignored them all. Then Emma called. "Savannah, I've been thinking about what you told me. I consulted with our legal team. They strongly recommend you file a formal police report and consider a restraining order. What your brother did, it's not just family drama. It's criminal. I know." I sat on my freshly cleaned couch, exhausted. "I'm meeting with the police tomorrow to give a formal statement." "Good." Emma's voice was firm. "And Savannah? Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about this. You have every right to protect yourself and your property." After we hung up, I finally allowed myself to sit in silence. The house was quiet now, peaceful even. But the peace felt fragile, like something that could shatter at any moment. I knew this wasn't over. Ethan wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. My parents would pressure me to forgive and forget, to put family harmony above my own well-being. They would make me the villain in this story, the ungrateful daughter who turned on her loving brother. But I wasn't going to let them rewrite history, not this time. The next morning, I went to the police station and filed a comprehensive report. I brought my laptop with the security footage, Douglas's documentation, Harriet's statement, and my own photographs of the damage. The officer who took my statement, Detective Sarah Morrison, watched the videos with increasing concern. "Miss Reed, this is pretty clear-cut," she rewound to the moment Ethan jimmied open my desk. "Breaking and entering, trespassing, theft of documents with intent to commit fraud. The DA will definitely want to see this. Are you interested in pressing charges?" I looked at her steadily. "Yes. I want to press charges, even though it's your brother, especially because it's my brother. He knew exactly what he was doing. He manipulated my neighbor, violated my privacy, and plotted to steal my property. If he were a stranger, we wouldn't even be having this conversation." Detective Morrison nodded approvingly. "I'll forward this to the DA's office. In the meantime, I'd recommend a restraining order." Your brother has shown clear intent to harm you financially, and he's demonstrated that he's willing to break the law to do it. I filed for the restraining order that afternoon. It felt surreal, filling out forms that would legally forbid my own brother from coming within 500 feet of me or my property. But as I described his actions in writing, the clarity of the situation became undeniable. This wasn't about family loyalty or overreacting. This was about protecting myself from someone who saw me as an obstacle to overcome, rather than a person deserving of respect. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but I knew this confrontation was inevitable. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "Savannah, we need to talk." My father's voice was stern, the tone he used when he had already decided I was wrong and just needed to explain it to me. "Your mother and I have been discussing this situation with Ethan, and we think you owe him an apology." I stared at him. "An apology? He made a mistake." My mother stepped forward. "He shouldn't have gone into your house without permission. But calling the police? Filing charges against your own brother? That's going too far. You're tearing this family apart." I let them in, but only into the entryway. I stood with my arms crossed, my back straight. "You want me to apologize to Ethan? The man who lied to my elderly neighbor, the man who broke into my desk, the man who called someone to research how to fraudulently steal my house. I should apologize to him? He wasn't really going to steal your house, Savannah." My father said it dismissively. "He was just concerned about your finances. We all are. How did you afford this place anyway? You never told us you had this kind of money." And there it was, the real issue. Not that Ethan had violated my privacy and broken the law, but that I had succeeded without their knowledge, without their permission, without fitting into the box they had built for me. "I didn't tell you because I knew this would happen." I gestured around my entryway. "I knew that if you found out I was buying a house, Ethan would find a way to undermine it. He would spread rumors that I was living beyond my means or had gotten money inappropriately. And you would believe him because you always believe him. That's not fair," my mother protested. "We don't play favorites." I laughed, a sharp sound without humor. "Mom, when was the last time you asked about my work? Really asked? Not just a polite question before changing the subject to Ethan's latest sale or the kids' activities? When was the last time you celebrated one of my achievements?" They were silent. That silence said everything. I walked to my living room and picked up my laptop. "Sit down, both of you. You're going to watch something." They sat reluctantly on my couch while I queued up the security footage. I started with Ethan lying to Harriet, the fake concern in his voice as he spun his story about my accident. I showed them him breaking into my desk, photographing my documents. I let them hear his conversation with Greg about transferring property ownership. I showed them Tiffany trying on my clothes, talking about how they would redecorate when they moved in. I made them watch Tyler and Lily destroy my things while their parents laughed. By the time I finished, my mother had tears running down her face. My father sat rigid, his jaw clenched tight. "This is what your son did," I said quietly. "This wasn't concern. This wasn't family helping family. This was a calculated plan to undermine me and take what I've built. And if I hadn't installed security cameras, if I hadn't documented everything, he would have succeeded. You would have believed whatever story he told you, and I would have been the crazy one for accusing him." My mother wiped her eyes. "I don't understand. Why would he do this?" "Because he's jealous." The words came out flat, matter of fact. "Because his whole life, he's been the golden child, the successful one, the one you're proud of. And he's deeply in debt maintaining that image. I did some research. Did you know he owes over $80,000 on credit cards? That his mortgage is underwater? That he's been borrowing from his retirement to make ends meet?" My father's head snapped up. "How do you know that?" "Because when he violated my privacy, I decided to do the same to him. I'm an architect, Dad. I have clients who work in banking and finance. It took 3 phone calls to get the full picture. Your golden boy is drowning, and instead of asking for help, he decided to drag me down with him." There was a long silence. Finally, my father spoke, his voice heavy. "We owe you an apology. It's not enough." I shook my head. "I need you to understand something. I bought this house with money I earned. I saved for 5 years, lived below my means, built a successful practice. I did everything right. And instead of being proud of me, your first instinct was to assume I had done something wrong or had been given something I didn't deserve. That tells me everything about how you see me." My mother reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "I need space. From all of you. I need time to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I can have with a family that respects me so little." "But we do respect you," my father protested. "Do you?" I challenged. "Dad, when I told you I wanted to study architecture, you said it was a hobby, not a career. When I started my own practice, you asked when I was going to get a real job. Every holiday, every family dinner, every phone call, I've listened to you praise Ethan's mediocrity while dismissing my actual achievements. So no, I don't think you respect me. I think you tolerate me and wish I were more like him." The truth hung in the air between us, sharp and undeniable. My mother was crying openly now. My father looked older than I had ever seen him, the weight of his failures as a parent suddenly visible on his face. "What do you want from us?" he asked finally. "I want you to leave. And I want you to think about whether you're capable of having a relationship with me based on who I actually am, not who you wish I was. When you figure that out, if you figure that out, we can talk." They left slowly, defeated. I watched them walk to their car, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for setting a boundary. I felt free, but I wasn't done yet. I had one more confrontation to face. I called Ethan and told him to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. He showed up looking haggard, dark circles under his eyes. We sat across from each other, the table between us feeling like a vast chasm. "You really filed charges." It wasn't a question. I did. I folded my hands on the table. "And a restraining order." He flinched. "Savannah, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I was worried about you, and I let that worry turn into something it shouldn't have been." "Cut the crap, Ethan." I leaned forward. "I heard everything. I have you on camera calling Greg about property transfer. I heard you and Tiffany planning how to convince Mom and Dad that I was incompetent so you could take my house. This wasn't worry. This was greed." His face crumpled. "You're right." He put his head in his hands. "You're right. I'm drowning, Savannah. I'm so deep in debt that I can't see a way out. And then I saw your house, this beautiful, perfect house, and something in me just broke. It should have been me. I'm the older sibling. I'm the successful one. How did my little sister end up with more than me?" There it was, the raw truth underneath all the manipulation. I felt a flash of pity, quickly smothered by the memory of my violated office, my broken model, my scattered documents. "I'm successful because I lived within my means," I said quietly. "Because I didn't buy a new car every 3 years, or take expensive vacations, or send my kids to private school to impress people. Because I built something real instead of an image. You could have done the same, Ethan, but you chose appearances over substance." He looked up at me, his eyes red. "What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your actions. The DA is reviewing the case. You'll probably get a plea deal, probation, and restitution for damages. The restraining order stands, and our relationship, whatever you think it was, is over." "Savannah, please. We're family. Family doesn't break into families' homes and plot to steal from them." I stood up. "Family doesn't manipulate and deceive and scheme." "You taught me something important, Ethan. You taught me that blood doesn't excuse betrayal, and you taught me that I'm strong enough to stand alone." I walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. The next few weeks were difficult. I threw myself into work, finishing the Chicago project successfully and landing 2 new major contracts. I started therapy, working through years of family dysfunction with a counselor who specialized in toxic family dynamics. I joined a support group for people who had gone no contact or low contact with relatives and found comfort in knowing I wasn't alone. I also focused on my house. I hired a professional painter to cover Lily's crayon artwork. I replaced the desk lock with something more secure. I commissioned a local craftsman to rebuild my architectural model, this time in cherry wood that would last forever. Each repair felt like an act of reclaiming, of asserting that this space was mine and mine alone. Harriet became a regular visitor. We had tea together twice a week, and she shared stories from her decades of teaching, tales of resilience and growth that resonated deeply. Douglas continued his vigilant watch across the street, and I found myself appreciating his attention to detail more and more. The neighborhood, this community I had chosen, it became my real family. 6 weeks after the break-in, I finally felt ready to host my housewarming party. I sent invitations to my colleagues, my friends, the neighbors who had shown me such kindness. After much deliberation, I invited my parents as well. Not because I had forgiven everything, but because I wanted to give them one chance to see me in my element, to celebrate what I had built on my own terms. Ethan and Tiffany were not invited. The restraining order remained in effect, and Ethan had accepted a plea deal that included probation, community service, and restitution for the damages. He would also be required to attend therapy and financial counseling. I felt no satisfaction in his punishment, but I also felt no guilt. He had made his choices. Now he had to live with them. The night of the party arrived crisp and clear, early November bringing the first real cold of autumn. I had spent the day preparing food, arranging flowers from my garden, setting out candles throughout the house. By 7 p.m., my home was filled with people who actually cared about me, who celebrated my success without jealousy or conditions. My colleague Marcus brought his wife and raved about my kitchen. "Your design aesthetic is everywhere," he observed, gesturing at the way I had blended modern efficiency with historic charm. "This is what you do for clients, but elevated. This is your masterpiece." Emma arrived with a bottle of champagne and a knowing smile. To the house that almost got away, she toasted, and to the woman brave enough to fight for it. Douglas came for exactly 30 minutes, made a careful circuit of the house, noted 3 minor repairs I should consider, and left satisfied that I was maintaining the property well. Harriet stayed much longer, holding court in my living room, charming everyone with her wit and literary references. My parents arrived last, tentative and uncomfortable. I welcomed them politely, but didn't go out of my way to make them comfortable. This was my space, my achievement, my night. They could participate on my terms or leave. I watched my mother take in the house, really see it for the first time. She touched the built-in bookshelves, examined the careful restoration work, stood at my kitchen window looking out at the oak tree. When she turned back to me, her eyes were wet. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," her voice cracked. "You've built something truly beautiful." My father was quieter, but I caught him studying the architectural drawings I had framed on my office wall, my awards and certificates, the evidence of a career he had dismissed for so long. He found me later in the kitchen. "I was wrong," he said simply. "About your career, about your capabilities, about what you could achieve. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." It wasn't enough to erase decades of dismissal, but it was a start. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, I found myself on my window seat with Harriet, just as I had imagined so many months ago. The Japanese maple was bare now, its branches stark against the darkening sky, but I could already imagine spring when it would bloom again. "You know," Harriet said, sipping the tea I had made her, "in all my years of teaching literature, the most powerful stories were always about people who found their strength through adversity. You've written quite a chapter in these past few weeks, Savannah. I never imagined my brother's betrayal would be the catalyst for me finding my voice," I admitted. "But sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most important lessons." Harriet patted my hand. "You've learned that you're stronger than you knew, that your worth doesn't depend on others' approval, and that sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into." I looked around my living room, at the few remaining guests chatting and laughing, at my parents trying awkwardly to fit into this world I had created without them. I thought about Ethan, probably at home now, facing the consequences of his actions. I thought about the scared, uncertain woman I had been just months ago, desperate for her family's approval. She felt like a stranger now. "This house became a symbol," I said quietly, "not just of success or independence, but of my right to define those things for myself. When Ethan invaded this space, he temporarily violated it, but in taking it back, I also took back myself." Harriet smiled. "And what a beautiful self you've reclaimed." After everyone left and I was alone in my house, I walked through each room slowly. I turned off lights, checked locks, set the security system. In my master bedroom, I paused at the window seat and looked out at the darkness beyond. Somewhere out there was my old life, the one where I had accepted being small to make others comfortable, where I had believed that family loyalty meant accepting mistreatment, where I had thought success had to be hidden to avoid conflict. That life was gone now. In its place was something harder, perhaps, but infinitely more real. My relationship with my parents would never be what it once was, but maybe it could grow into something healthier, built on mutual respect rather than outdated expectations. My relationship with Ethan was over, and I had made peace with that. Some bridges need to burn to keep you safe. I had learned that the most important houses aren't the ones we're born into, but the ones we build for ourselves. Built with boundaries, with self-respect, with the wisdom to know when to close one door so another can open. This house, with its oak tree and maple and bay windows, was more than wood and stone. It was proof that I was enough, exactly as I was, that my success didn't require anyone's permission or approval, that I could stand alone and be stronger for it. The security system beeped as it armed itself, all sensors active, all cameras recording. But for the first time since the invasion, I didn't feel the need to check them obsessively. My house was secure, and more importantly, so was I. I climbed into bed and looked once more at the bare branches of the Japanese maple, black against the navy sky. In a few months, those branches would be covered in delicate red leaves, a yearly reminder that beauty returns after winter, that growth follows dormancy, that endings are also beginnings. I had ended one chapter of my life. Tomorrow, I would begin writing the next one, and this time, I would be the only author of my story.